Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to welcome everyone for our third installment or our third workshop on how to balance Deen and Dunya. I'm going to go through and list out again our workshop dates. We again are on our third one. Today's topic will be on the importance of righteous actions. Today we're going to review the last session's brief topics, and then we're going to get into the core topics for the importance of righteous actions. And at the end, we'll do a quick Q&A. And of course, after, we're going to have, I believe, some activities, some s'mores or something. And after that, we'll do. So if you remember when we attended our first workshop with Sheikh Burhan, before he left, he introduced to us the life strategy. And he talked about our purpose in life. And of course, our purpose in life is to follow all the commandments of Allah, right? To single out Allah alone and to act and have all of our actions be of worship towards Allah. And of course, our strategy is based on our faith, right? And today we'll be talking about the second topic in that list, which is righteous actions. Of course, next to that is calling to the truth and being patient upon it. Of course, you'll find this in the last ayah of Surah Al-Asr. And then we'll go into some of the challenges, basically a little bit of my life experience, both internal and external, but again, the challenges of life, right? Internal and external. So for you, some of you who don't know me, my name is Saheed. I work at Caterpillar. I am a senior system engineer. I also work at Darul Uloom. I teach high school math and a few other science topics. The next thing that Sheikh Burhan went through was stressing the importance of Iman, and then stating that Iman is equal to knowledge. He went through the proof from the Qur'an. He also brought in a hadith. And then he also talked about the importance of the definition, right? That knowledge, right, is basically the opposite of ignorance. And it's the realization of a matter in its determined proper sense. And again, in the Sharia, knowing which is opposite of ignorance, which is, again, for knowledge. So today, I'm going to take the next step. Since we have covered ilm, what do you do with that ilm, right? Again, in our accordance, when we go again looking at Surah Al-Asr, is basically to implement righteous actions based on that knowledge. And if we do that, we have to first find out what's the foundation of righteous actions. So, what is the foundation, right? The first thing we have to discuss is the origin of righteous actions. The origin of righteous action is reflection. Al-Hasan al-Basri, one of the Tabi'in, may Allah have mercy on him, said, "Verily, the people of understanding continue to alternate from remembrance to reflection, and reflection to remembrance, until their hearts awaken and speak with wisdom." Speaking this afternoon to one of our young upcoming, inshallah, scholars in the future, it was brought out to me that most likely this is from Surah Al-Imran, when Al-Hasan al-Basri was bringing out this statement. It's between ayah 190 and 191. I was supposed to put it on here, but I didn't. But inshallah, what can we find from this, right? If you remember, as a Muslim, we are told from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to contemplate and reflect upon the Quran. contemplate and reflect on the Quran, and also contemplate and reflect on our actions. Because that constant reminder, right? That constant reminder and reflection will hopefully bring us closer and closer to Allah, right? And strengthen our hearts and bring us wisdom. So after we get into this case of, and another thing is that there's a summary from a statement from Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah have mercy on him, where he states basically reflection, right, leads to a state in the heart that leads to an intention, which is the next step. One's intention is the foundation of one's righteous actions. If you were to open up the 40 hadith of Al-Nawawi, Imam Al-Nawawi, you'll find the statement from Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him and may Allah have mercy on him. He stated, heard Allah's messenger saying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, certainly actions are considered based on the intentions, and everyone gets the recompense according to what he intended. So anyone whose migration is for Allah and his messenger, his migration is for Allah and his messenger. But the one whose migration is for worldly gains, he gets that, or for a woman, he marries her, and the recompense for his migration is as for that for which his migration. And you can find this in Al-Bukhari and Muslim. In fact, I was told that this is the first hadith of Sahih Bukhari and the fifth hadith in Sahih Muslim. Now, what does this mean? It means when we make our intentions purely for Allah and Allah alone, we get the benefit of earning the reward from Allah and Allah alone. But when we make our intentions mainly in the ibadah or the worship, if we mix it with something else, add a partner to it, or have it for something entirely different, we get the benefit from that and that alone, and not from Allah. So when we're thinking about our righteous actions and foundation of our righteous actions, we should really think about our intention first. Again, going through this step by step, we talked about remembrance, then we talked about reflection, and that reflection again should lead to an intention in the heart. Of course, that intention should bring you closer and closer to Allah. And based on that intention, it should lead you to righteous actions. So after we talked about the foundation, righteous actions, we have to talk about the obligation of those. So now we have kind of an understanding of a sense, or at least a high level sense of what a righteous action is. But let's now talk about its obligations. Sheikh Fawzan, in a summary of one of his statements, may Allah be pleased with him, stated it's obligated upon all mankind with the performance of righteous deeds based upon the worship of Allah alone. So again, worshiping Allah alone, Tawheed. We've talked about this before. Sheikh Burhan brought this up in the introductory workshop. Now, if an individual is concerned with righteous actions and connects his heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and does not fill his life with, and does fill his life with plenty of righteous actions of obedience to Allah, then no doubt, in this case, he will be in the first group. By the mercy of Allah, this is the cause of success and salvation. And we're talking about success and salvation in the dunya, and of course, the ultimate success and salvation in the akhirah, in Jannah, inshallah. May Allah make us all amongst the people in Jannah. Now, if an individual is not concerned with righteous good deeds or righteous actions, and does not connect his heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and does not fill his life with plenty of righteous actions of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then no doubt they'll be in this lovely red group, no doubt. They'll oppose, they, they will oppose, or to oppose this would lead to destruction, right? And of course, the worst of destruction is entering Jahannam. So I wanted to take a little bit of time for us to maybe contemplate for about 5 minutes and think about our obligations for our righteous actions and or the obligation of doing righteous actions and how it can relate to us. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of my life experiences when it comes to righteous actions. So I'll give us 5 minutes. Actually, I want everyone to maybe find a partner, one or two. I mean, two or three, I'm sorry, and discuss the obligation of having the obligation of doing righteous actions. And then maybe we'll also use this as a opportunity to ask questions at the end of the workshop. So pair up, take a few, let's increase it to 10 minutes and take a 10-minute discussion between each other and discuss the obligations of righteous actions. Righteous actions, yes. Again, just discuss the obligations of righteous actions. So basically, we just talked about how it's obligatory for us to do righteous actions as Muslims. And I wanted you to reflect upon some of the righteous actions you may do and how those are obligated from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Obligation comes from duty. Once
All right. Hopefully you benefited from each other's input on this portion of the workshop. One thing I wanted you to take some time to do is when you and your partner or your group were discussing the benefits or the obligation of righteous good deeds, just think to yourself or think amongst yourselves, how do you feel after you did the deed? Now, for example, this basic example, when we pray our salah on time, most especially Fajr and Isha, which are the most difficult ones at times. For the men, when you come to the Musalla, or if you're at home and you're far further away from the Musalla, but you get here on time, you hear the adhan, you You make the azkar between the adhan and the iqama. You hear the iqama and you pray. For sisters, you get up, you do your wudu, you go pray, and after there's a specific moment. I know I feel it. And some people connect it to their fitrah, but I believe it's in the heart, right? The more and more we do righteous good deeds, and iman goes up, the feeling we have in our heart strengthens, become firm upon the truth, and we get closer and closer to Allah. So I want to make sure that you understand that those righteous good deeds are not just there for nothing, right? One, they're there for, again, by Allah's mercy, for you to ultimately have success in salvation. And of course, the ultimate success in salvation is in Jannah. But it'll also benefit you in this dunya. It gives you a great feeling, it gives you motivation. It's like a boost of adrenaline, you know, but it's a boost of iman, of course, which is way better. So I just wanted to connect the two. So after you guys talked about your own obligation, I want to also kind of let you relate with some of my life experience on righteous actions and life experiences. Again, if you don't know my background, my parents are from Nigeria. I was born and raised in Chicago. So I went to, I would say, pretty rough high school. And then I went to the University of Illinois for college. But one thing I wanted to address, which all of us can relate, and I'm a little bit younger, getting old though, is that, you know, we all go to high school or going to high school, and we all go to college or went to college. And at those places, even elementary school for the younger kids, we have friends. And those friends can influence you. This Friday, khutbah was given on sticking with the Jama'at. And I wanted to connect the two so you can understand what it means and relate it to something maybe you probably heard from your parent, your close best friend, or maybe your siblings. The first thing I wanted to address is who are as-Sunnah wal Jama'at. In this case, when we talk about historically, we're talking about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaabah, and the righteous predecessors after them, the Imams, right? The 4 Imams, the scholars that came after them. These are what we would deem the Jama'at. And specifically, why they're the Jama'at is because they followed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as described by the Sahaabah. And of course, they're doing everything in accordance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is just the basic understanding of this. And the reason why I wanted to stress this is that when we talk about our friends, if we are going to have good friends, right, they should be wanting to be in this group. So if you assess that your group that you're with or you're always with are not trying to be in this group, then they are most likely not your friend. When I was young, and I tell you, Islam was very far away from me when I was young. There was no practicing the Deen. There was no praying Salah. Wallahi, I didn't know Surah Al-Fatiha until I was in my 20s. And my parents are Muslim. So, and it's not their fault in some ways, but it's also their responsibility in some ways. Our culture in Nigeria at times cannot basically put the importance on the Deen. But alhamdulillah, now it's kind of transferring. Me and my brother are the ones who are pushing my parents. They went to Hajj. They're praying their Salah. It's a complete transformation. But the one thing I will say is that if I were younger, it would have been a hope of mine that the people who I was surrounding myself with were trying to prescribe to be part of this Jama'at. And a Jama'at is not, it doesn't mean that it's a large group. It could be just one person. If you take the story of Prophet Prophet Nuh, may Allah be pleased with him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was on his own. It was him and his family for the longest. He didn't have a big group of individuals with him, and he was still a part of the Jama'ah. So it's not about having a big group, but it is about you following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought us as described by the Sahaabah. So I wanted to bring light to that and being a relation to that to you guys as high school students or college students or even adults and elementary school students. It's important for us to stick with this group. Ibn Masud stated, may Allah be pleased with him, when he was talking to Amr ibn Maymun, indeed, the majority of people, they are the ones who split from the Jama'ah. Indeed, the Jama'ah is only what conforms with the obedience of Allah, even if you were by yourself and alone. So at times, that may be the case. A good, close friend of mine, after the completion of his daughter's wedding, I asked him, how did he get his daughter to get to where he was, or get to where she was? He stated he told his kids that if he's amongst a group of people or even Muslims, and if she or he didn't feel weird, that they should check their Islam. You know, most especially our sisters, you know, when you're outside in your abaya and your hijab, quote unquote, people call you weird. Or for brothers who like to wear their thobe outside in the Hy-Vee in Walmart, people will call you weird. But wallahi, you are sticking with the Jama'ah. Of course, it's not based on just that. Of course, you need to do your righteous actions, but you are sticking with the Jama'ah. Another life experience for me are my children and raising my children. A long time ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I made a dua that I would live very close to the masjid. I would have an Islamic school very couple minutes away, and it would be easy for me to do it. Alhamdulillah, that dua, I'm living it. Funny enough, today we're talking about the 3 questions of the grave. And I was talking to another friend of mine, Brother Khalid. If you guys know Khalid, he's part of our community. His brother's over here, Waleed. And I was stating what the answers to the question of graves were, and I stated something incorrect. And wallahi, my daughter that's right there in that corner, Khalida, she's like, Daddy, the last one you didn't answer right. And I tend to say things real quickly. She was like, no, the last one, the last question, the last answer is Islam. I said, what did I say? I said, you said Qur'an. I said, yeah, you're right. So look at the benefit of children being raised in an Islamic community. This in itself is a righteous action. This is the hope for the future of the Ummah, right? That if we continue to do righteous actions, these actions will get us closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the steps that Sheikh Rahan often states. He says that the first step is to believe in Allah and Allah alone. Follow Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Seek knowledge, which you've heard him say many a times from the pulpit or on YouTube or in conversations with him. And then based on that knowledge, implement it. And though you implemented it is the righteous action. Does that make sense? And there's a few more steps after that, but I'm going to leave that for the other brothers who are doing the future workshops. So I'm going to leave about in the top fast, and sometimes I just kind of get straight to the point. So I was going to leave at least 10 to 15 minutes filled with questions. Even if you're up there, you have questions for me. I was going to see if Bungie had want to interject a little bit, if I missed anything. based on this topic of righteous actions. Any questions up there or from the brothers? And don't be afraid to ask. And I will tell you, if I don't know it, I'm going to tell you I don't know. Go ahead.
Before doing righteous.
Now, if you remember my first slide, right? If you intend to do something, oh, sorry. The question was basically, what is the importance of first seeking knowledge before actually doing the righteous action? So if you remember my first slide, we talked about the intention, right? To intend something, you have to have knowledge first. You have to have a basis of knowledge. And that knowledge, again, has to be from the Qur'an and Sunnah, right? As conducted by the Sahaabah. If, for example, someone asks you how many rak'ah are in Asr, and you didn't do any knowledge, you didn't look up hadith, or you didn't go to someone who has the knowledge, and you just answered, you have most likely given someone an incorrect answer, and that's not going to be a righteous action because you've given someone information that's not based on knowledge. So it can be very, very detrimental to your understanding of Islam. You could be thinking you're doing something correct, and all of a sudden it's incorrect. And that's also important to when we're trying to seek means of doing righteous actions with some of the people we're listening to. When their foundation is not correct, you're going to get incorrect information. Does that answer your question? Nah, okay. You push me this way. So the question was, or to expand on the point of, say one more time, just want to make sure I got it right. Now, so he wanted me to, expand on the gap of basically innovation and actual ilm. So we know within our ranks or within Islam, there are people even today that are upon innovation, right? One of the major ones we see around the world is grave worshiping, right? And of course, individuals who do not seek knowledge, they believe that what their actions are doing or the action they're doing is correct, right? But when we actually seek knowledge first to see if this form of worship is correct, we understand that this is in itself not a righteous action. So the importance of first seeking the knowledge before actually executing the action is extremely important. That's the only way you'll even know what a righteous action is, right? Does that make sense? Right. Any questions from other brothers, or I didn't mean for this to be so short? No. No. So when we were talking about Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the group that I named, and of course, hopefully all of us who are trying to follow that group, when it comes to the foundation, their foundation of understanding Islam, they are all upon the same foundation. There's no difference. Now, if we talk about issues of when we talk about, let's give an example, maybe something in Salah. Maybe, of course, they may have some differences on some other things. Like, for example, one of the major ones that a lot of people bring up is after the ruku, right? When you get up from the ruku, do you put your hands on your chest or do you put your hands on your side? Some of these individuals in this group would say on your chest. And some of these individuals in the Jama'at will put it on their side. There's a difference in opinion, right? But when we talk about the foundation of Islam, the understanding that we should only worship Allah and Allah alone, and that we should follow Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that we should follow the understanding from the Sahaabah, the two generations after them, the four Imams. This foundation is the same across all of them, all of the people who are within this Jama'ah. If that is not the case, then they're outside the Jama'ah. And it's kind of it's disheartening because a lot of people who you would think are in there are not. But we all hope to be. May Allah make us all within this Jama'ah. And again, this is spoken about, this same phrase is used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as being amongst the believers and being amongst the Salihin, the righteous. You guys don't have any questions or they don't want to talk? You could give it to my daughter and she'll bring it down for me if you want to write it down. Don't. Yeah, no. Anyone else?
For the youth who may not have friends who are appropriate and pattern the right and
No.
how would you invite them to try to rectify it?
So the question for Brother Jihad is for you, right? That may not be surrounded by the most positive individuals and may not be in this group here. What is my advice for them? First, funny thing is, I'm going to go right back to social loss, right? It's time for us as young people in general, especially when it comes to these phones and technology, we need to get back into seeking help. So that'll be the first step. Seeking knowledge. And of course, you need to seek knowledge from the appropriate individuals on the steps of how do I surround myself around sound people. That would be my first step. And that would be the same step that comes from Sultan. And then the second step after seeking the knowledge is, hey, first, I probably also make a lot of dua for myself, taking advantage of your fard prayers, your extra prayers, your sunnah prayers, of course, and of course, witr. And then after that, once I know that knowledge and I know it confidently, right, I have to implement it. There are going to be times where you're going to have to stand firm on things and move further and further away from those friends, or hopefully at that time former friends. And then not only doing that, but at the same time, since you know the knowledge and you're implementing it yourself, you should call your friends to it. If they're Muslim, you should remind them of these things or give them the knowledge themselves if you are strong at the knowledge yourself. So you could potentially take a group that was not upon the Qur'an and Sunnah and make them part of the Qur'an and Sunnah. So there's many avenues to this, right? It's not something that happens overnight. We're going to also, at the end of this, have to have a ton of patience and perseverance as my, oh God. If you don't know, all 5 of my children are here right now, and my twins are fighting over there. So, have you ever seen a cartoon of a kid being drugged back into a room? This is what's happening now. Okay, I think my daughter might be coming down with a question, or sisters don't have any questions. Good. Good.
Outrage, like the opposite of righteous deed. What would that do? What effect would that have on the heart?
So the question was, what would a righteous action affect the heart? And how would you get out of it? Go back to Sunnah. Of course, the major thing is that we would know that, one, your iman will go down, for sure. And of course, if your iman is down, that means you don't have knowledge, right? Because we told you before that iman equals knowledge. And then the steps to get out of it, again, to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Reflect and remember, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you to worship Him alone. I know it's repetitive, but it's the truth. This is the purpose of our life. If we return back to that, for sure Allah will give us guidance, right? If we return back to the same steps that we have to do, return back to Allah, needs to be worship Allah, seek knowledge based on whatever tribulation that you have. We think that we're dealing with like new occurrences, new issues, new difficulties. These difficulties were back done with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and even the prophets before him. These are things that we have seen day in and day out before in history. So the actual answers and how to implement them and how to go through them, it's already there for us. We just have to go back and seek it. I know it may be quote unquote difficult because we're not used to it ourselves. Now we'll start reading books every 2 days and walk through it. But there are resources as well. There's plenty of good YouTube pages and YouTube channels out there. One thing I would also, this might be a little bit difficult for sisters, but for the brothers, is that there are conferences that surround these topics. One of the topics in the last conference I went to was about happiness, right? How to seek happiness, right? And Sheikh Burhan brought that up during the same topic from the conference during the khutbahs for about, I think, 8 weeks, discussing the book that was discussed at the conference. That's a means. Speaking to people of knowledge, seeking that knowledge. Again, there's plenty of YouTube pages, there's Mixler groups, there's WhatsApp groups that actually discuss a lot of these difficult topics. So one of the conferences we have is coming up weekend. And I wanted to at least announce it again. We've been announcing it in some of our groups. The topic is pretty awesome. Is the purification of the heart. And if you go back to my statement from earlier about awakening the heart, remembering and reflecting, it'll lead to these righteous actions. So if you want to follow along, we'll be sharing it. We'll probably share the flyer. But if you want to follow along through the days of this conference, they'll also be showing this or viewing this on YouTube, Mixler, a few other of their online apps that you'll be able to listen along. The book is also offered. There's a book it's in Amazon. It's only $28. And if not, if you have some financial difficulty, you're more than welcome to speak to Abdullah. I'm sure we'll find some brothers or sisters that will help out. But again, strongly recommend brothers and sisters to go ahead and take some time to listen to the conference. Again, it's next week. It starts on the 28th or the 30th, and it goes up till July 4th. So they're taking advantage of the off day on July 4th. Oh, so of course, just to give you an idea, the presenters or the speakers are all students of knowledge, or at least a majority of them, or have studied under students of knowledge. And we're talking about the mashayikh around the world. They've studied with them. If you're needing names, one of the prominent ones, Sheikh Hassan Tamali, Sheikh Umar Quinn, Sheikh Anwar White, Sheikh Qasim Khan, Sheikh Mustafa George. These are all mixed backgrounds from African American to Indian to straight African, Asian, you name it, they have it. So you're getting a perspective of individuals who are purely giving you the haqq, giving you the truth. So there's no cultural attachment to it. Our culture is Islam, plain and simple. So if you have any questions, you feel free to ask me after. If you have, I think we have, I don't know if we have space in our the brothers van anymore. But if you're interested, please reach out to us or another. Nah. So again, I was taking this time to get questions, but one thing I do want to remind you, and it's specific to this workshop. So this entire workshop for the summer, we're starting a book. We just started another book in our Aqidah class. So if you're interested in attending, you should take your phone out, use your QR reader, and sign up for the class. The class is going to be covering Salatul Usul. Yes, Salatul Usul. Basically, the topics that we're covering in this lovely workshop when it comes to knowledge, so the importance of knowledge. The book that we're going over is from the Imam Muhammad Wahab. May Allah be pleased with him. May Allah have mercy with him. And there's many explanations. We're going over the explanation from Sheikh Uthaymeen, if you're familiar with the Sheikh. And we're going through that book. And from personal experience, because this is not my first time going through the book with Sheikh Burhan, it made Islam clear for me. It made being firm on certain things, like not shaking a woman's hand that is not my wife or my mother, not attending things that are not basically non-Islamic holiday celebrations, going to conferences, studying. It made it easier for me. And wallahi, if you read it and understand it, it will make it easy for you. Those times where you feel that you're confused on the understanding of Islam, this book will clear that up. I strongly suggest that you attend the class. If you have questions on this class, the students of knowledge that I mentioned in this group, everyone has a recording that goes over this book. Everyone that I know in that list has gone over this book. So if you need a different flavor or different person to say it, you can even watch that too. But I strongly suggest that you attend the class. Go back to the QR code. Any other questions for me? Okay. So to close out, I just want to remind everyone that any good that came from me in my speech was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And any error that I made was from myself and shaitan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just a note for everyone, for those of you who are signing for the Aqidah class or are already on the email list, inshallah, we'll be sending the material and the links to the conference as well if you're interested in tuning in and you aren't able to attend in person. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.